Hello and welcome back once again to After the Credits. Today we're talking about the new M. Night Shyamalan film, Split. So what did I think of Split? It was mildly entertaining, I guess, at best. For the most part, unfortunately, it was kind of an uneventful film, but it did manage to keep me just interested enough to keep watching it. It wasn't quite what I've come to expect from an M. Night Shyamalan film as far as like his storytelling and development of characters. So we start the movie off at this girl's birthday party, I guess, like her sweet 16 or something, or sweet 15 or something. They're supposed to be like 15, 16-year-old girls because they don't have licenses yet. They're still going to ride from the one girl's dad. Basically, the party's over, and the dad's going to take the daughter and the one girl home. And there's another girl whose ride hasn't shown up yet, and she's like, "Oh, it's fine. You know, my ride will be here in a little while. He's just having some car trouble, whatever." And the dad's like, "No, I'll give you a ride home. It's no big deal." So they go out to the car, they get into the car, and the dad's putting like the leftovers and presents and stuff into the trunk. And the one girl kind of notices like there's a bit of a commotion at the trunk, but she thinks maybe he's just struggling getting stuff in there or whatever. So the other girls are just kind of sitting there talking because the one girl is kind of like the social outcast, even though she's their friend. They think she's awkward and she doesn't always fit into the group. I don't really know why they're friends with her, honestly. Like, they say like she's always intentionally getting herself in trouble and stuff like that. So why are you guys friends with her and why did you invite her to the party? Doesn't really make sense other than to some degree they're friends with her. But she clearly doesn't fit into their social dynamic, their whole social teenager group. So she looks back again and notices like something is spilled on the ground, and she's like, "Oh, well, maybe that's why the dad's taking so long, because he dropped something, he's trying to clean it up or whatever." And at that point, the dad, or who they think is the dad, gets into the car, and she looks over and realizes that that's not the other girl's dad. And instead of just saying, like, "run" or something like that, and letting the other girls get out of the car, she just kind of sits there quietly staring at this guy. And then the other two girls are like, "Hey, sir, I think you have the wrong car," you know. And then he turns around and sprays something in their face that knocks them out. And she kind of sits there quietly and he ignores her. He's like, "Okay, she's not resisting or whatever. It's fine." And then she slowly, like, as he's getting ready to drive off, starts to reach for her door. And, like, as soon as she opens the door, the car has that ding sound that every damn door has when you open your door while the keys are in the ignition. And he kind of notices that she's trying to get away and grabs her and sprays her with the same chloroform stuff, and she's out. They all wake up later in this room. They're kind of like, you know, "We've been abducted, whatever. We got to try and fight our way out of here." And the girl's like, "No, if you fight, it's just going to get worse." And her friend's like, "Well, I took 6 months of karate at the mall or whatever, and, you know, I think we can take him if we all three attack him at once." And the one girl's like, "Don't be stupid. Your mall karate isn't going to help you here." And you know, kind of puts the girl in her place, but then, like, the other girl is kind of like, "Well, why are you so negative about it? We need to come up with a plan. We need something to do." And she's like, "Let's just weigh out the situation, see what exactly is going on, and then we'll make a plan once we know more, once we know who this attacker is, how dangerous he is, what he wants from us." So he comes in to grab one of the girls, and the smarter girl realizes that he's kind of a neat freak because she knows he was always wiping things off and cleaning things. So obviously he has a bit of OCD and like germophobic. So she thinks that, you know, "I don't know what he's going to do to me." She's trying to fight being drugged out of the room and everything. And the other girl says for her to wet herself. And at first it's kind of like, "What?" And she's like, "What yourself?" You know, and so then once she goes out in the other room, she ends up wetting herself, and the guy throws her back in the room, and he's like all, you know, and disgusted, and he has to clean it up now. And then the second girl kind of starts to realize that maybe this girl is a little bit more equipped for this situation than they gave her credit for. The other girl is still trying to be the leader of the group, you know, and like, cause she's the debutante or whatever and gets everything she wants, and is still trying to hold that authority. And her friend still looks to her for advice, but at the same time knows that if the other girl says something, maybe I should listen. You know, so that kind of becomes clear. And it just kind of goes through this process where then you find out that the guy has multiple personalities, and they start to meet a few of them. And then we also meet his doctor who's been helping him with his problem. And apparently, like, some of his personalities, when he's asleep, one of them will wake up and send an email to the doctor saying, "I need an emergency session, we need your help," whatever. And then when he comes into the office the next day, because the doctor scheduled the appointment with him, and she says, "Well, what's going on?" And he's like, "Oh, nothing. You know, they're just the other personalities are just playing a game with you. Nothing's going on, you know, I was just feeling a little down, thought I needed someone to talk to, and apparently one of them decided to schedule this appointment. And this just keeps going on. It repeats like probably 5 times throughout the movie. And by the 5th time, the doctor should really be like, maybe I should go check out what's going on because something's going on here. She knows where he lives. She should have went and checked it out. So finally, after about the 7th time this happens, she finally goes to check on him and sees him at his house. And as she's visiting at his house, everything seems to be fine. And then as she's getting ready to leave, she goes, "Oh, do you mind if I use your restroom before I go?" He says, "Sure, it's down the hall. You know where it is." So she kind of goes snooping around the house and finds the girls. And this is like way later in the movie. There's a lot that happens in between there with the girls, and you start to learn more of the one girl's backstory about why she's so antisocial towards the rest of the group and how she got that way and why she's always getting in trouble and things like that. Eventually it comes to the point where all 3 of the girls have been separated because when they're all together they're trying to plan to get away, so he ends up separating all 3 of them into different rooms. And basically like what he's been saying the whole time is that he has another personality. Originally there were 23 personalities, but he says there's a 24th, which is like this monster, and he kind of describes the monster and says like, you know, it's basically a beast. It's like 7 feet tall, and its skin is bulletproof, and it can cling to a wall like a spider and things like that. And the doctor's theory is that like certain people with multiple personality disorder have had odd medical situations. Like one of the personalities will be diabetic, and when they're in that personality and they're tested for diabetes, it shows up, and then they have to take insulin when they're in that mental state. But then when they switch to a different personality, that personality is not diabetic and they don't need to rely on the insulin. And she's thinking that maybe when people develop multiple personalities, it's usually due to some type of trauma. And maybe that trauma is actually unlocking some subconscious of the mind that we don't yet understand that unlocks these abilities, and that they are technically able to become different people. So then it kind of leads to the idea that even if this beast personality does exist, there's no way it can do the things that you say it can, even though the whole theory that the doctor is behind would be that it could. So basically the guy has captured these 3 girls to be food for the beast, because the beast likes to devour, I forget the exact wording they use in the film, but basically people who haven't known trauma, like he's known trauma. That's what caused all his multiple personalities, was he had an abusive childhood, and he lost his innocence early, I guess. So people who are kind of blind to the way the world is what he needs to feast on. And he kind of observed them all for a few days, found these 2 girls who clearly didn't know anything about the world. They've had everything handed to them their whole lives and were completely blind to the evils of society. I think he said that had never known evil or something like that was what he needed to feast on. And that's basically why he got these 2 girls. He'd been watching them for a while, saw they're young rich kids who don't know anything, so they'd be perfect for his meal. And it just so happened that when he decided to take them, there was a 3rd one along, so extra meal, right? It's like when you get extra fries in your combo meal. So now jumping back forward, the doctor comes to the house, and she's kind of exploring around on her way to the bathroom and finds one of the girls locked up, and she's like, "Oh my God, you know, I need to get you out of here." Of course, he finds her and realizes that she has found out a secret, so now one of the personalities decides to kill her. And when she's being killed, the doctor quickly jots down a note of how to not really snap him out of his mental state, but basically like call back his original personality, because it kind of gets secluded behind all the others. And you can call it back to the forefront by using a certain term. And she jots it down, so then the one girl is smart enough to kind of figure it out once she reads the note, because the doctor kind of left it to where she'd be able to get out of her thing by blocking the door lock so it wouldn't lock all the way. So she gets out, she finds this note, and she uses it to kind of call the guy's original personality back. And he's like, you know, what's going on? What day is it? What year is it? All this stuff. And apparently he's been subdued by the other personalities for, I think it was like something like 8 years or something. And she's like, no, it's this date and your personalities have done some horrible things. And he's like, look, here's what's going to happen. Eventually they're going to take back over. I can't stop that. Here's where I have a weapon that I bought a long time ago to end it if it ever got out of hand. Here's where it is. Here's where the bullets are. Get it and kill me. Basically, he says, stop me at any cost. The girl gets the gun, and about that time, he shifts back into his other personality, so then there's the battle between them. And a little bit of a spoiler here, I'm not going to tell you exactly how it happened, but she gets away, and the police manage to track him down and take him into custody and everything. And there's a reason why she's able to get away from him, which is sort of the M. Night twist. And like when it happened, I was like, well, that's not really much of a twist. It was kind of explained as the movie went on, and it was kind of obvious from the start by the way they kind of mentioned certain things. At first, honestly, the way I thought the movie was going to go was that she was somehow associated with this guy, and she had led these two friends into the situation so that he could take them, and it was going to turn out that the reason she was telling them not to fight back was because she hated them and they were in cahoots together, and that basically they set all this up. That would have been an awesome twist, even though it would have been kind of called from the beginning. It would have been a cool twist. But what ends up happening, like I said, it's an okay twist, but it's not really an M. Night twist. The twist actually comes at the very end of the movie. But I'm not going to tell you what it is because it did actually take me a little bit by surprise when it popped up. I will say that the twist is kind of unrelated to this movie, but has to do more with M. Night's next movie that he's got coming up. And hopefully that doesn't spoil too much for you. If it does, well, at least that's a more vague spoiler than what happened to me on Facebook the other day when an article popped up basically advertising a top 10 list type of thing, but it ended up revealing the twist for this movie in the thumbnail. And I was like, wow, good thing I literally just watched that movie yesterday. Otherwise, that would have been a huge spoiler for the twist at the end, you know? But yeah, the twist isn't anything to do with the movie itself. There is a little bit with the girl's history and why she's able to escape from the beast, but it's a very minor twist, and the main actual M. Night twist that he's known for is after all that, and how it ties into his future films. So there's not really much else to say about it other than that. What would I give it as far as a star rating? I'd probably say I'm going to give it a 3.5, and that's only because of the slight twist ending. I was just going to give it a 3 for middle of the road because, like I said, it is kind of a basic movie. It's not super eventful, and the ending twist of the main story wasn't really as good as some of the other twists that M. Night has thrown out at us. Like I said, had it gone the other direction I thought it was going to go at the start of the movie, it probably would have been a more awesome twist, even though I would have been able to call it. It still would have made it a much more dark movie, I guess. But that didn't happen, so it was just kind of a middle-of-the-road 3 for that. But then came the additional twist of how it ties into the future films, and it gained a little bit back for that. I actually sat up for that. I was like, whoa, wait, what? And I kind of had to sit there for a minute and actually take in what was actually going on in basically a 15-second portion of the film. It's like, this happened, it's like, wait, what? Okay, that's kind of cool. And, yeah, that was your big twist. So it gains a little bit back for that, so that's why I'm giving it a 3.5. But honestly, for the most part, it's a middle-of-the-road film. M. Night's sort of coming back. He's kind of learned his lesson. He got that bit of hype from The Sixth Sense, and he kind of went crazy and is like, I can do whatever I want. And he tried to get a little bit too artful with some of the films, and after, his third film, it just kind of went downhill from there. And then he really got crapped on when he tried to do The Last Airbender. And, yeah, I think he's kind of learned his lesson now, and he's starting to go back to, let's take it easy, let's start small, let's get back to where I'm telling stories people like, and I can still throw in a twist ending, but it might not be a twist that they're expecting. And he's coming back. Let's give him some time. Let's see what M. Night does. So, yeah, it gets a 3.5 from me for that. So that's it for this episode. Again, as always, thank you guys for watching. Remember, like, comment, subscribe, share the video. Links are down in the description. Click the bell up here in the corner. Make sure you're getting push notifications every time I post new content. And until next time, we'll see you after the credits.